Hello and welcome back to the channel, and also a very happy new year. We are here with the third and final part of the breakdown of the Gameplay Showcase 2, and this breakdown we are going into the Room of Requirements and everything that we saw in that section of the gameplay. There is so much detail in here. I will try to fit as much detail as I can. I have gone through this video frame by frame to see how many secrets I can find. If this sounds like something you're interested in, then please check out my previous videos. I will link them all in the description below, but also if you haven't seen any of the videos, it will be worth going down to the description below, because I will also link the full definitive edition, which will have all three parts in one section, so you can watch it all in one go. If you like anything at Wizarding World, then obviously stick around. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, because it really does help me out loads. And you can watch all of my videos. I do cover mainly Hogwarts Legacy at the moment, but we cover other things in the Wizarding World as well. There has been rumours of a potential TV series coming up soon, so I'm sure we'll cover that on the channel as news comes out about that. But let's not hesitate and let's get into this breakdown. So this section of the showcase starts off with our character entering into the Room of Requirements, and we get a nice look around it, and there is a few little features I would just like to point out to you. So the first thing that I noticed as soon as our character walks into the room is actually we highlight a few of the items that we can edit or potentially change into different items with our conjuration magic. Now the first thing I noticed is actually the area around the vivarium in front of us is actually highlighted as soon as we walk in, which would suggest that we can actually modify this location as well. They did say that we could edit the architecture, so this means that the area around the vivarium is classed as the architecture and can potentially be edited. I will point out a few more of these highlighted things as we move through this trailer. Now we have the main vivarium that we have seen in the middle of the room, and this is the grassland area that we will see as the trailer goes on. But we have two more vivariums to the top left and to the top right of the screen. Now, the top left looks to me like a swamp-like area, but it could also be some sort of area similar to the Forbidden Forest. If you look at the trees and the roots that you see around it, it does give me some sort of vibe of the Forbidden Forest. However, I think it's more likely to be a mixture of both, maybe a marshy area but with a forest area as well, which means we will be looking after creatures from those biomes inside it. I also wanted to point out the windows that you can see to either side of the doorway. They appear to be in the design of what looks to be a cobweb, which points to the fact that we may even be able to catch the giant spiders that we see around the map and even breed them. Now this one to the right hand side is a little bit different, as lots of people are speculating that this could be water or potentially underwater creatures that we will raise here. And I think that'd be really interesting to see if we can do that, and I can understand why, because the light emitting from this room does look very similar to water, and that the bowl itself does seem very similar to a sort of fish bowl design. However, if you look around the entrance to the vivarium itself, similar to the one on the left, it hints at what potentially this location is going to be. And if you look around it, there appears to be lots of stone, and to me it looks like it could be within the interior of a cave. So potentially this is going to be when we are going into the mining locations or into caves or dungeons, and this is going to be the creatures that reside in those sorts of locations. And this would be probably a slightly darker set of creatures, maybe creatures that like the cold and the dark areas, things like the Inferior or maybe even boggarts or something like that. As we look around the room, we can see a couple of the stations that are interactable. You have the plant pot locations in front of us. You also have the loom, which we will get to later on, and then we have this device to the right hand side of our character. We do not know exactly what this is at the moment, but I think this is the potions stand. Also to the right hand side of this, there is a 4-minute and 24-second countdown for something that we are making to the right side. This has a question mark on it, so it does not say exactly what this is going to be. We then get our first look at the conjurations and the customization that we can actually do in this location, and it is unbelievable the amount that we can customize. As we look upwards, we can see that our character can edit the whole ceiling of the Room of Requirement. There appear to be 4 possible selections. We only see 2 of them, which is the scientific main ceiling and also the botanical main ceiling. But there appears to be 2 more to the right hand side. These do give me vibes of different houses. I don't know how exactly they will interact with the houses, but the scientific also reminds me of Ravenclaw, and then the botanical reminds me of Hufflepuff. So I'm wondering if one of them will feel a bit like a dungeon, and the other one will feel a bit like the Gryffindor common room. It would just make sense if they make it have the aesthetics of some of the Hogwarts houses. It is worth it. There is also possible changes to colour of the ceilings. If you can see to the top right here, it says to change colour. However, we do not see them do this in the trailer. Just for note as well, we see a little gameplay mechanic of when we are looking through our character goes into this sort of translucent mode that we can see to the bottom left here. So as our character moves forward to show some more conjurations of the mats, we can actually take a look at the floor design, and it is quite interesting to look at. We can see that the room of requirements itself is orientated to the compass, and on this design in the middle there is actually a few little triangles that stick out from the blue section, which point to the north, south, east and west directions of the compass. I wonder if this is intentional, that the room is purposely linked to the compass, or if this was just one of the first rooms they designed and built out from there. There's also what appears to be flames are coming from around this blue thing in the middle. Obviously I do not know if there's any reason for this, but it's just an interesting design, and there's actually quite a few flames throughout the room as we go through the rest of the trailer. This could be indicating the demise of the room of requirements in the end of the Harry Potter series. So we now get a first look at the main conjuration screen, and there are a few things that we can actually see that we can build. So we have 12 different sections within the conjuration at this point in the game. Whether there is more or not, I do not know. But we have 12 that we can potentially select at this time. We only see a few of them highlighted, but I can speculate as to what the rest of them are. So the first one we see highlighted is a potions section. This item is used to brew potions. I think this is going to be the item in the corner that we saw earlier, as it appears to have the potion mechanics as part of it. To the right of this, we then have a plant symbol. I think it's going to be similar to the plant pots that we see either side of our character at the moment. It's going to be where we grow our plants and ingredients. So to the right hand side of the plants, we have this spanner symbol. I think this symbolizes the things that we can use to customize our character. So these are going to be the items like the loom, and also for the identification table that we use to identify certain power-ups and traits for our clothing. We then have a symbol of a stag. I think these are going to be conjurations based around interacting with animals and looking after the animals that we see in the vivariums. We then have a whole section dedicated to rugs, which we can see our character use in this section. We also have another section later on that's dedicated to chairs and sofas. So if we look to the right hand side of these two symbols, starting off with the rug one, to the right hand side of that there is this bookshelf and a chair. Potentially this is going to be locations that we can actually study or we can use to help us with our studies. We then have what looks like a golden stitch on top of a statue. Potentially this could actually be linked to rewards that we unlock. If we do certain challenges, it may unlock certain rewards, so these could be potentially trophies. The reason why I think these could be trophies is because if we look below it, there is actually a busk, and this looks more similar to what we see of the Niffler to the rear by the door as our character walks in. So I think potentially this is going to be more like those things, and the snitch above it is potentially going to be more like trophies that we can earn. And potentially one of the rooms that lead off of this would be a trophy room that we could put the trophies that we earn throughout the game. We then have a picture symbol. This is obviously going to be the artwork and anything that's hanging on the walls that we see around the room of requirements. Then next to the chair on the bottom row, we have this table, and this table is obviously just going to symbolize a table and maybe other items that we can potentially interact with, but we might also have items that we can put on top of the tables as well. Obviously to the right hand side is the busk, which I believe is going to be like the Nifflers, as I said earlier. And then we have a whole section dedicated to the holidays. So it looks as though we're going to be able to unlock certain Halloween items and also potentially Christmas items as well. So now we've talked about potentially what we can conjure, let's look at how the conjuration works. Now we collect moonstone throughout the game. We've seen these rocks around the game, which I believe are going to be moonstone, and then we have to collect this, which will be able to power our conjuration magic. From what we can see in this, the conjuration doesn't actually cost too much per item. It looks as though you only need 2 moonstone per item at this current time. I don't know if some of the bigger items will cost more. However, there is a conjuration budget. This is obviously stopping you from completely overwhelming the requirements with different things. And as you can see, there's actually quite a lot of leeway as to what we can conjure. I think this is because we have several rooms that come off of this room. So even though this room does appear very full, we actually have several rooms that are going to come off of this room, and the room of requirements itself is going to extend. And we also have 3 vivariums that we are going to be able to fill as well. So although there is a budget and we can only do a certain amount of conjurations, it looks as though they are allowing us to do quite a lot, because this room itself does not feel empty in the slightest. So when we are conjuring, we have what we can conjure to the bottom of the screen, and we can move right and left using the D-pad. We also have a section at the bottom which allows us to do different things to those items as well. We can undo the changes that we've made. We can also rotate the object with L1 and R1, and there is also changing sizes. It'd be interesting to see if he actually uses the spell Engorgio to do this. L2 disables snapping, so I believe potentially certain items will be able to snap together. So maybe if you have a table, you could potentially snap a chair to the location so that it actually looks as though they go together. And then there is also the square button which changes the colour, and there appears to be quite a few different colours that we can select. We get a better look at the colours when we adjust this chair here. At this point in the game, we have access to 9 colours. I do not know if we are going to be able to unlock more, but at this time we have access to 9 colours. And those colours are white, black, blue, this green colour, which is quite similar to my channel colours, so I'm quite happy about that. We then have a pink, a purple colour, and also red, white, and yellow. When we select a certain item, it gives us a brief description of what the item is to the right hand side. As you can see with the chair here, it says a botanically inspired chair with a floral flair design. I love the fact that we can actually make this chair incredibly small, and it doesn't have to be functional in the slightest. It can just be there for decoration. As we approach the stairs, we can also see there is another countdown here for 3 minutes and 12 seconds for this device here. So not exactly what it's doing. There appears to be mud and different twigs on top of it, so potentially it's making some sort of manure to help make your plants grow quicker, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what this is going to be at the time. We then get a quick glimpse down this corridor into one of the extended rooms. Potentially this could be, as I suggested, some sort of trophy room where we can hang up trophies. There appears to be something on the wall in front of us which looks like it could be a creature horn, but I'm not entirely sure if that is the case. But it would be nice to have somewhere that our trophies can be displayed to show exactly what we've done. We then can see how we highlight certain things on the wall and allows us to edit them as we go. We then delete these shelves off of the wall and remove them. We then see that we get Moonstone back. We get 4 Moonstone back for this shelf, so this would suggest that potentially this item is going to be 4 Moonstone to buy rather than 2 Moonstone. So there's going to be different prices for different things that we use. We then see these cat plates, which gives a very Umbridge vibes, and we can see our character just adjusting the size and moving them around, just to show exactly how much we can cover these walls in what we want them to and fill them with our own aesthetic. Honestly, the conjuration magic and the customization in this just completely blew my mind. I was not expecting this section to be so interesting, and the way they've done it just feels like a completely different game within another game. We then turn back into the room and there is not actually another corridor on the opposite side of us. I do not know if we have to do something to unlock the corridors. There is this figure of a woman with her hood up. She gives the Morgana statue vibes, but she is very much different. She doesn't have the staff and she appears to be holding something to her chest, but I can't see exactly what it is from this location. Potentially we have to look out for these similar statues and then we can do quests around them, and then once we do that we will unlock different areas of the room of requirements. There's also potential that we might have to use some sort of potion. If you look above the pillars here, there appears to be some sort of potion bottle with what looks like flames coming out of it. And if you actually look at the staircase that we just went up, there is also the same symbol above this staircase. I do not know if this is linked in any way or if it is just a design choice, but I just thought it was worth pointing out that they are in very interesting locations, parts of the room of requirements that are potentially expandable. We then interact with the planting table and it gives us a brief description of it. This is a botanical potting table perfect for growing free plants requiring small pots. So it suggests that some of the other plants will require bigger pots. I would imagine this is going to be for the things like the Chinese chomping cabbages, and the bigger pot, which I believe is this one over in the corner here, is potentially going to be for the bigger plants like the venomous tentacula. We again have 4 different selections for this, wondering again if these are linked to the houses, but we only get to see 2 of them once again. That is the botanical and the scientific potting table. We then also get to see our character customizing the colour of this table. Now the next section of this breakdown is some really interesting information that we got about how the loom system works and how we can upgrade our gear. So when we get to a certain point in the game, they told us this wasn't straight away, but we are able to access the loom as you can see here. We use the loom to allow us to upgrade our uniform and allow us to attach perks and also add different defensive or offensive stats to each piece of clothing that we own. When we open the loom, it comes up with this information in the middle. Gear features one primary offensive or defensive stat by default. Magical materials can be used with the loom to add and upgrade a secondary stat, or apply traits to your gear. Multiple small upgrades can yield a meaningful boost in combat power. New beasts can be rescued at beast dens. This is a symbol that I mentioned in the first part of this breakdown in the exploration section, where we saw this beast den symbol, and I recommended it was a beast that we could potentially catch, or unlocked in quests. New trait recipes can be collected from bandit camps, and there's a picture of this tent symbol here. Now I suggested that potentially the skull symbol was going to be the camps, but it looks like they have their own symbol here. So this is really interesting. We have to gather up different magical items, which allows us to either add a defensive or offensive stat, or allows us to give us a trait. And as we go through this, it shows exactly how this works. So we appear to have potentially 4 different levels of clothing here. We can see that we are currently wearing these 2 to the right hand side. Their backgrounds look as though they could be blue, but it is quite difficult to tell because they are blurred out because we are currently wearing them. On the bottom there is also the glasses. They appear to have a green symbol around them. This is different to any of the other symbols that we have at the top. So where do we highlight the blue symbols, as we can see here? They are described as superb beneath the name of what the item of clothing is. When we are over the purple ones, they are described as extraordinary, and then when we are over this gold one, it is described as legendary. So these appear to be 4 different levels of clothing that we can have. I would imagine green is going to be the most basic, blue is then slightly more powerful, purple more powerful than that, and then finally the legendary gold is going to be the most powerful one, and I have some information to back that up when we actually look at them. So if you look at the blue one, you can see that we can apply 1 trait to this, and we can apply a trait that is at level 1. When we go on to the purple one, we can apply a trait to this, and this is when it is a trait at level 2, and then we can apply a trait to this, and that is when it is a trait level 3. Now it looks as though we can upgrade each item of clothing 3 times. As you can see this bar here, just halfway up this box, there is 3 slots where it allows us to fill an upgrade. I believe when we apply an upgrade, one of those slots will glow with some sort of magic, and that shows that we have applied an upgrade to the item of clothing. And then as we go on, we can upgrade it 2 more times. We can access the upgrade menu by pressing the square button, or we can access the traits by pressing the triangle button, as we see here. So I believe the upgrades will upgrade our basic stats, so our defensive or our offensive stats of the clothing. So the more we upgrade them, the more damage we will do, or the more damage we will be able to take. And then the traits seem to allow us to have specific advantages against specific types of enemies. However, potentially as we unlock more traits, there will be different things, not just damage decreases against different enemies. They may add different traits. In similar games, they offer certain traits that potentially would be able to allow us to have a faster cooldown on spells, or potentially gain more experience, or potentially we could build our ancient magic bar quicker. But the traits we get to see at the moment are only damage decrease traits. We have discovered 25 traits at this point, but we can only see 7 of them at this moment in time, and we only know exactly what 6 of them do. So we have the Protego Shielding level 1. This decreases damages taken from Dark Wizards. We have the Amphibior Protection, which decreases the damage taken from Dugbogs. These are the creatures that we saw in the swampy area. We have Goblin Silver Resistance, and this decreases the damage that we take from goblins. We have the Necromantic Protection level 1, and this decreases the damage taken from Inferiors. We have Anti-Venom, which decreases damage taken from spiders. Again, as I mentioned, we confirmed they were spiders in the first part of this breakdown. Again, they do not say that we are up against Acromantula, so I believe that this is still sticking to the canon that we know. Finally, we have a Cushioning 1, and this decreases damage taken from trolls. Each of the symbols do give us some sort of idea as to what we are going to be protected against. You can see that there is a wizard in this one, the outline of a Dugbog, and then outlines of the creatures that are being protected from as they go down. Finally have this Lupus Protection. I think this is going to be the protection against the wolves that we saw in the initial trailer, as lupus is the Latin word for wolf. Now I would imagine that the different traits we unlock will actually be relevant to different creatures that we have to collect parts from. However, all of these seem to be Puffskein fur that we have to collect to be able to unlock these traits. Also worth noting, the level 1 traits seem to only require 1 Puffskein fur. The trailer then goes on to show us the identification table, and this is how we identify different gear and see what traits we can learn from it. So as we find gear in loot boxes or from completing missions, we can bring it here and learn different traits and different possibilities that we can apply to our combat throughout the game. We then see the upgrade section, and it opens up into a page like this. You can see that by doing this upgrade here, we can upgrade the Snowy Owl Scarf to add 4 defense to our character. So this is just a basic defense. This is not a defense against specific creatures. This is just our overall defense level against damage to us. You can see here there is Mooncalf fur that we need to collect to be able to do this, and it requires 2 to upgrade it here. And then, as I said earlier, you can see that once we have upgraded it, this slot is now filled yellow, which means we have 2 more possible upgrades that we can do on this specific piece of clothing. Once we have upgraded this spell, you can see that we need some more Mooncalf fur for the next upgrade, but we also need a Fwooper feather. This confirms another animal in the game that we'll potentially be able to look after in the Vivarium. A Fwooper is a magical bird, and listening to its high-pitched twittering song could drive listeners insane. So each bird, when sold, was sold with a silencing charm placed on it. The silencing charm had to be reinforced monthly, and a license was required to own one of these birds. Again, another really interesting creature to see if we have to look after, and it'd be really interesting to see if we have to regularly cast the silencing charm on it. We then add the anti-venom trait to this piece of clothing, which allows us to take even more damage from spiders. So it's a really cool way of seeing it. If you know you're going to a location which is going to be full of spiders, or full of goblins, or full of inferi, you can make specific pieces of clothing to allow you to go through the mission a lot easier. So we get another confirmation of a different animal that is in the game as we go to upgrade this legendary piece of clothing. We can see that we need to collect Jobberknoll feathers. A Jobberknoll was a bird that was mainly found in Europe and North America. The bird itself never made any noise until the moment before it died, and it would release a long scream which consisted of every sound it ever heard backwards. So a really interesting creature, and just a really random one to introduce into this game. Once we do this, you can actually see the next level that we need to be able to collect to upgrade it further. We need some more Jobberknoll feathers, but we also need Niffler fur and toad warts, confirming again that we have a toad we are going to be able to tame and potentially look after in one of the vivariums, potentially even in the swamp one that we see to the top left. Our character then turns, and after talking about the creatures that we may look after in this game, heads towards the vivarium where we will look after them. It's worth noting that to the left hand side, as we walk past the hopping pot, we can see there is actually a Maxima potion ready for us to collect in there. We don't know what this potion does. Potentially it grants us a power boost. By the sound of the Maxima name, I think that's likely. We then enter into the vivarium, and instantly the lighting effects and the area just looks absolutely gorgeous. We see this Graphorn here, and there's a couple of symbols we see to the top of the screen. So we can see that it is a Graphorn. It gives us a creature's name, and it is also male with the male symbol to the side of its name. We can also see this symbol here with a heart and the animal print. This is potentially going to be how happy the creature is, or if it needs grooming or something along those sort of lines. There's also a food symbol as well, which means the creature needs to be fed. We then walk towards this Mooncalf. This is also male, and we can see that our spell diamond down the bottom has changed to allow us to look after the creatures. So we have this spell on the right, which appears to be giving them these food pellets. We have the spell on the bottom, which appears to brush them. And then we have this spell on the left, which appears to put them into our newt case, so we can take them out of the vivarium. So potentially just means that all of these creatures are able to come out of the vivarium with us, whether that means we can release them into the wild, or whether that means that we are just able to take them out and potentially use them in battle or use them for a mission. I do not know. But we can potentially take most of these creatures out with us. We then head over to this Niffler, who is also a male. You can see the two symbols at the top, and as we brush this Niffler, you can see that the heart symbol, which is his happiness, goes green because he has had some attention given to him and he has been looked after. Also, as we feed this Mooncalf, you can see that his food symbol also goes green for the same reason. We then walk over to this Kneazle, who again is also male, who needs feeding and looking after. We then get a nice look at the customization that we can do within the vivariums as well. Every single part of this looks customizable, and it's just incredible the amount of detail they've gone into. This feels honestly like another game inside of the main game of Hogwarts Legacy. It's just unbelievable. I know people who would pay just to have this experience, not just the rest of the game as well. So we can see a couple of the items that we can pick in here. There appears to be different architecture that we can have. All of these appear to be ruined, and to the right hand side it gives us a description of what they are again. This one is a ruined archway. As we move it there, just look at the lighting effects as the light moves through this gap between the building and the trees. So some more of the customization, we can customize this bench. We see all three of the variants of this bench here. So it starts off as this initial stone bench, which is described as a solid stone bench, which is a natural addition to any location. We can then change it into this ornate bench, which is described as a resplendent bench giving any area a majestic feel. And we can also change it to this wooden bench, which is described as a rustic bench to enhance a homespun design. Again, we have the ability to rotate the objects to disable the snapping and also to change its size. Our character then opens up the conjuration menu, and we can see that within the vivariums there is only 4 sections that we can conjure. The first section is where we can conjure things for the beasts that we have in here. We only get to see one other confirmed section, and that is the 3rd section here, which are building pieces. I can only speculate as to what the other 2 are. I think potentially the far right one could be allow us to lay different sorts of path and terrain, and maybe the other one in the middle is going to be specific items that we might be able to interact with. Maybe things where we could potentially grow crops that allow us to help feed the animals or something similar to that. But that is just purely speculation just from the picture. As we highlight the beast items, it tells us what it does, and these are items for managing beasts, including feeders, toys, and breeding pens. So we actually do highlight the breeding pen straight away, and the breeding pen can be used to breed 2 beasts and produce offspring. So we know in the Harry Potter canon there is actual interspecies breeding with the blast-ended Skrewts. So it'd be interesting to see if we get a male and female of different species, if we are able to breed them into something new, or if it is just a case that we can breed 2 mooncalves together to allow us to get a baby one and look after them, and potentially increase the output of the beast materials. It costs 15 moonstone to produce a breeding pen. We then see this beast feeder. It is a large beast trough that keeps your beasts fed. This allows us to not have to go into each beast individually and feed them as we go, and allows us again to increase our production. This costs 8 moonstone. And then finally we have this toy box. And this is described as a toolbox budget, so potentially we will be able to get an even better toolbox as the time goes on. But this is full of toys used for playing with beasts, which would potentially allow them to make themselves happy without us interacting with them again. This costs 4 moonstone. This particular toolbox contains lots of different boars that the creatures will be able to play with. There is also a training dummy from the Dark Arts. As you can see, the mooncalf does love this boar. So what they show us next is that we are able to customize not only the area, but we can also customize our beasts and give them names, and we actually interact with this Graphorn here. And as we do, we can see we get some more information about this creature. Graphorns are large mountain dwelling beasts that have a tough hide and 2 sharp horns. The tentacle-like appendages on the Graphorn's face are used for capturing food, tending to their young. Graphorns are known for their aggressive nature, however a witch or wizard has been known to befriend one in rare circumstances. We have a few sections at the bottom which are really intriguing. The first one is the L1 button, which allows us to summon this creature. So potentially if we summon this creature, it puts this creature into the bag for us, and then we can summon it into battle. That would be really interesting to see how many creatures we can take into battle and what they actually do when we summon them. The L3 button returns this creature to the wild. Potentially we are not always keeping the beasts here, we are just returning them to health before sending them back to the wild. And the R3 button is what we actually do next, and that is to rename the beast. So we can give the beast a nickname. As you can see, this is Bruce the Graphorn. Once we've done that, as we highlight him, it doesn't say Graphorn anymore, it says Bruce. Just for noting, as we've done this, to the left hand side you can see some moonstones that we can interact with later on in this trailer to unlock more moonstone to allow us to buy some. So it is nice to know that there is actually some in the vivarium to keep us topped up. So that finally the last few shots is just some customization, so I'll go through every individual item that we actually see as we customize it. So the first item we customize is this heather bush. We can change it into a gorse bush, a fern bush, or a shrub. And we can again see as we do that, we can change the size of the bush here. We then interact with this large tree. We also see this sapling that we can change as well. This one is one of my favorites. I love the aesthetic of this. This is just described as a dead tree, but you can also potentially get a twisted tree, which is what we are changing it into here. And then finally we interact with this stand-in stone. We can see there is also an enchanted fountain described at the bottom, but we don't get to see exactly what it looks like. And then there is also this large hippogriff statue, which we actually finally end up putting down. We can make this statue absolutely massive, as you can see here. So we can also interact with the hammer and anvil. We can change it into some pumpkins or into the wow that we see next to it here. In this moment here, it looks like we actually can select the whole cottage itself. So it'll be interesting to see if this is fully interactable, or if this is just an item that we've put in there to allow us to have somewhere that looks nice to live. It would also be interesting to see if we have a different version of this cottage and if there's different aesthetics that we can put in here. So there you have it, that was my full breakdown of the Room of Requirements gameplay in the Gameplay Showcase 2. Let me know what you thought of my breakdown, and also let me know in the comments if I've missed anything. I always like to hear if I've missed something so we can have a chat about them in the comments. If you want to have a chat outside of these videos, I do have a Discord server, the link will be in the description down below, and also come over to Twitter and follow me there. Again, I will leave the link in the description. I cannot believe we are in 2023 now, the year of Hogwarts Legacy, and it officially comes out next month. How incredible is that? We've been waiting so long for this game, and it's nearly here. I am so excited, and I cannot wait to play the game on the channel and see if we get any more news before it is actually released. But that is it for this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. But until then, mischief managed.